My name is Tommy. Welcome.
You know, how do I get away with being so offensive? Oh, Bambos.
Today we have Tasha Stevens Valezio.
Nicely pronounced. Tasha Stevens Valezio. And we're going to be talking to her about foraging for a living. And when we say foraging for a living, it's really that the last 10 years of her life, she lived only off food from the land. So this is really legit. And we're going to discuss this where?
And so much more.
And so much more, because Bambos likes saying that way too much. And so much more
and
on.
So much more.
And so much more on.
On a very much more.
On a much more.
Wonderful chaos.
Yes, it is. Bambos does the most random things now. Every day before he comes here, he stops somewhere on the street and he says, "Hey, today we've got Tasha Stevens on," and then he points at some random person and he has them say, "A wonderful chaos." Here we see some street vendor who shouts out "A wonderful chaos."
Well, actually, he doesn't, because English wasn't good. He said his name. And then he says, "Wonderful."
Oh, and I love because they hear you talking about Tasha as if they would know who this person is and what we're really talking about. I know Tasha from my work. She works at 42 acres in Somerset, England, which is an incredible piece of land where they're doing retreats, where they do short stays, and where they're focusing on food and food philosophy. What are you doing?
It feels like there's a spider web going onto my head.
Yeah, it does look that way. So basically, I've been interacting with them, helping them define their vision statement and their mission statement, and just sort of supporting them in that process. And through that process, Tasha and I became friends, and we've been interacting and doing projects as well. And as she told me her story, I got more and more fascinated by the whole idea that you could live 10 years. Think about that, Bambos. 10 years only off food you're foraging from land. And then take it one step further. Now she's hired by the retreat center, 42 acres, and said, "Hey, we've got this vast amount of land. We want you to help us figure out, how do we forage? How do we pick wild things? What's edible? What's not edible?
Wow.
How do we grow mushrooms here? How do we create a self-sustaining ecosystem which will feed people who come on our retreats?" Isn't that wild? So when I said I forage for a living, it's really true.
The fact that we consider it to be wild is wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's anything I've learned over the last years, it's that going back to simplicity is relearning something that everyone else knew in generations before us.
Yeah.
So everyone else understood how nature worked. And now, you could ask a kid, where does the egg come from? And they'll just say the supermarket, or milk, right? There's just no consciousness of that in their psyche. And we see that also when we bring on people, like when we had from Make Soil and the whole composting movement. And the idea that it's so hard to see a feedback loop. Like, where do we have food, which is what we've consumed and left over, and see that it goes back into soil, which then can be used again to create food? Like, that feedback loop is so far away from us in cities that we lose consciousness that there's this regenerative possibility in our lives. Yeah.
And it's a really good show, by the way, with Josh. What's his last name?
Yeah, Josh Whitten. Josh Whitten, yeah.
Look him up on The Wonderful Chaos.
So I say we bring Tasha on because Tasha's waiting.
I think she has an amazing backdrop. Look at that.
She's waiting in the rings. I love your green screen. It's nice.
I had it designed for this day.
I know how much you died to get on video. And how it was really like you wanted to be here so badly, And so I'm appreciative that I could be one of the 20 shows you're doing this week.
Yeah.
Do you realize that you're one of the first shows I when you didn't show up for our show as planned, right? This isn't to guilt you.
Sorry.
No, because I'm looking at the title of the show. It's a woman who loves to be on the land, who wants to be close to nature. And like, how quickly is she going to say, let me look at my agenda to see where I'm going to be doing on a computer today? So I actually thought it was more my responsibility than yours.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
What did we do instead?
Yeah, as we always do, we made something up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we tried to make it interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was.
So I was facetious, obviously. When was the last time you've ever done an interview like this?
I don't.
Let me rephrase the question. Have you ever done an interview like this?
When I was quite young, when I was in my early 20s, I started to become interested in indigenous wisdom and activism to do with protecting the lands of people in Latin America. And I got a grant to go to the Amazon. And
Wow.
as part of that work, I was partly funded through the BBC. And I started doing interviews and traveling internationally, but I actually stopped because I realized I was becoming the thing that I was talking about getting rid of.
Wow. And what was that?
Well, I was traveling internationally and talking about eating local food, regenerating local food systems, becoming more in touch with our surroundings. And so, yeah, I came back from the Amazon and I just was like, I'm not doing that. And just began to kind of go into it.
Wow.
Into a process, which was about 15 years ago. And actually now I feel like I need to do a little bit of both, like to talk about these experiences and the importance of this kind of work, and also to disappear onto the land, because that's where I can hear how do you put it into phrase? That's where I'm home.
Yeah. Yeah. I know the feeling. I think, as I told Bambos, I took that long trip, the long walk along the coast of the country, and I saw immediately being near to nature, I felt more grounded and more connected and more centered. So I immediately went, after getting back the first day, I went right back to the place I was in nature and said, Ronnie, let's find a place here. So basically just looking for a house in nature, which is, far more, I always say, I'm always feeling closer to being at peace with death when I'm in that spaciousness. And when I'm in a city, it's like the illusion of this stuff in front of me, it doesn't center me. So I'm kind of taken away out of my body. Yeah.
Nicely
I would
put.
say Western culture is very mind-based, very head-based. And so I was brought up in London, and you can become very disassociated with your body and your surroundings, because the city's not really built for being beautifully human. It's kind of built for an economic machine, really.
Yeah.
I love what you just said, actually. City is not built for being beautifully human.
Question for you. Did mom and dad wear tie-dye or not?
They did not.
What was their profession? Or were their professions?
So my dad's from Latin America. He's from Nicaragua. And he was born in a village. And sadly, due to war, he had to leave. And my mum, you could say she's an academic. She was part of the big wave of English as a foreign language explosion that happened as people began international travel in a really big way.
Wow. And you, as you said prior to us coming on, had your first foraging experience at 6 years old that you can remember. And
Yeah.
how did your parents, because I asked if they had tie-dye, because I thought to myself, I had never had a foraging experience with my parents that I can remember. So what was it that brought your parents to do that, and how did it affect you?
They didn't. I found some brambles at the bottom of my road.
Really?
Yeah. As a kid, I was allowed to play on the street, and I was lucky enough, even though it was a council area, I was lucky enough that the road was not very busy because it was a close, and I lived by a tiny little tributary that runs into the Thames. And I'm not sure how I'd feel about my daughter foraging there, because it probably had dog pee on it or whatever, but like, I innately had the drive to eat the berries that were growing along the side of the road. So my memories just from me responding to what I could see as a snack when I was a kid.
Wow. And I mean, did that, like, because that's your earliest memory, but did you, like some kids, gravitate towards things that actually stay with them? Would you say it was your first experience, or was it one that you said, I'm now wanting to understand what I can and can't eat? Or how did it evolve from there?
It wasn't a logical process. I remember eating grass at school. I remember putting things in my mouth and sensing into them whether or not I should keep them there.
Very wise.
Even they realize I'm saying this. Yeah, and I remember figuring out that grass was very sweet.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to understand the world around me. That's how I was sensing into the world, and food was a big part of my life. My grandmother was an amazing cook, and used to take me for lessons on cooking. So it was, and I was fascinated by nature. I was absolutely, as you were saying, I really struggled. When I was born, I wondered very early on why I was there. Why am I here? Like, why am I here? I couldn't understand why I was born where I was born. I felt like I was in the wrong place. Some people feel like they're in the wrong body. I felt like I was in the wrong place. And I think I can't.
Hello.
Hello.
This is Lillian.
Lillian, she can hear us now, right?
Yeah, Lillian can hear you.
Lillian, tell us, what's your favorite thing that your mother cooks?
Beans and rice.
Are those beans coming out of a can, or are they picked from some special garden somewhere?
Coming out of the can.
You're exposing your mother. When's the last time your mom took you to McDonald's?
Like since nowhere.
I figured that would be the case. That's nice. And how much gardening do you do behind you? I see you've got a beautiful garden behind you. How much do you garden there?
Quite a lot.
And what do you like most about gardening?
Gardening?
Yeah.
Her garden was the most productive last year, actually.
Really?
What did you grow?
The best strawberries ever.
Amazing.
Really?
So sweet. Yeah. So sweet.
I love that.
Lily's a really good mushroom forager. She doesn't like to eat them, but she's really, really good at finding them.
Yeah. What's the trick to mushroom foraging, Lily?
I don't really know. I just do it.
Yeah?
Intuition.
I noticed when I went mushroom foraging that I'd always try to go in the shadows of the trees because it was a little bit more mossy there. That's at least what I remembered.
Where did you do that?
I did that in the Czech Republic. I used to go foraging for mushrooms a lot with my ex-girlfriend's family. We had mushroom foraging days, which I enjoyed.
That's just normal there, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very normal. In fact, one of the funniest moments of my life, and you know how I like to play, I sat with grandma because grandma was still alive. And I asked grandma if she'd ever had mushrooms, the psychedelics, not the, and I'm sitting at the table and everyone's looking at me. They understand the question I've asked, but they're kind of confused. Like, why is he asking grandma if she's ever had psychedelics? And she said, no, I've never had psychedelics, but there was one time I ate something and I was floating above the table like a baby and feeling like that the world was so perfect, but I'd never had a psychedelic experience.
Oh,
and
wow.
And it was the
Amazing.
funniest moment to see that she didn't even realize that she thought it was food poisoning and that it was just an experience she was having, not even realizing that it was actually she had picked the wrong mushroom or the right one in this case, probably. Yeah.
We have this idea that that these things aren't normal, like a psychedelic mushroom isn't a normal experience, or you know, I was commenting to someone that, you know, for example, foxglove, it's it's poisonous. It would hurt you if you ate a lot of foxglove. But taken in a really small amount, it's actually used in homeopathic medicine for the repair and improvement of your heart. And so we have this kind of thing that we do as humans. Is it good or is it bad?
Yeah.
And you know, certain plants are bad because they're poisonous, or certain mushrooms are bad because they may create an experience that's not normal. But people have been using these herbs and mushrooms for a long time, and you could also argue that they're highly medicinal.
Yeah, sure. I always love when we're together. I feel like I'm listening to a Harry Potter book because, like, in no world would I hear the word foxglove and think that that's in a normal conversation, right? Like that's something I would see that J.K. Rowling would write in her book, and he pulled foxglove out of the closet to, you know, finish the potion.
Tasha, just being with you for the last 28 minutes.
Wow.
Actually 17 minutes.
17. Wow.
17,
I was thinking,
sorry,
wow.
I was counting the seconds. You come across as someone that not only lives off the land, but even the clothing and your choice of jewelry, beauty products, if you use them, they're all going to be ingredients which are raw. Like you're very conscious as to where everything is coming from, to the point of you don't even think about it, except for the canned beans.
Is that a question or a statement?
Well, it's a question. Like,
is it true?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna get quite hippie on you, but it's what I really believe, right? I believe that everything has an energetic vibration. Everything is energy, really. And so my choice of what I eat, my choice of what I put on my body, or what deodorant I use, that's all going to be frequencing in a certain way. And I'm embarrassed to admit what I really think, right? Because it's not normal.
Oh, actually, everything you've said resonates for me. So
yeah, it resonates for me as well.
I wouldn't classify it as hippie.
I would consider this pretty standard. If you don't see that the world is seen through that lens, then that's just a different lens you're not looking through. Yeah.
Okay. So I believe that in order to support myself to be the best person I can be in service to Gaia, I need to be putting the right the supportive energies around me. That's people, that's clothing, food, family relationships. You're always trying to put, I call it chispa. It's like spirit of life, like high spirit of life in everything. And so the more conscious choices you can make, the stronger your own personal energy will be, the more potent you'll be in the world.
I thought it was sweet that our relationship, in a way, we are quite different, right? In terms of, or not. What's your
I don't.
feeling?
I actually. I remember when I met you, and I remember being like, "Wow, there's a similar soul vibration there," and it was
Yeah.
very comforting for me.
Sorry, let me rephrase it. The way I dress and
Oh
present
yeah,
myself, it may be perceived from others that we're different.
yeah,
That's a
fully,
better way of stating it.
yeah,
On
yeah. I mean,
on another note, you've also left your house in flip flops.
I mean, I would look like a hippie all day if Ronnie allowed me to. My wife does. She went through my wardrobe and threw out half the things and said, "Andy, you can't dress this way anymore." But I guess what I wanted to share is a gratitude. When I met you, I saw that you don't appreciate or have connection with just anybody. And there was a deep sense of appreciation because I felt really seen by you, because I also knew how discerning you are concerning the energy where people are saying one thing and behaving another way. So I just wanted to share my
I
gratitude for that.
I have a so yeah. So the beautiful thing about you're welcome.
Mhm.
Thank you for being in my life as well.
No, thank you.
Um, yeah, I think spending so I lived off grid for about 13 years, and I think that time tunes you into reality more and more and more. And reality can be seen through many lenses, but there is a thing that happens in the world. And I can't help that I feel like I cannot, if someone's giving me bullshit, like if someone's not being true to themselves, I feel like I can't see them. It's like a opaque, there's like a I can't really see them. And and equally when someone's done that work to be really embodied and to be really present and to be who they are in whatever way that comes, right? There's 1,000 ways to do that work. I can see them, and then there's like soul connection.
Yeah.
And there might be a completely different soul to me, but there's a truthfulness there.
So it was very nice to see how you were talking about him. Like all of a sudden you spoke from this space. I always say that Andy's very consistent, and that's why I trust him. Like I've never experienced him up till now not behaving in a way which is not in alignment as to what he puts out in the world.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What I feel from both of you, because Bambos is very similar to when you describe that opaque thing, like that's how I know Bambos. So I see Bambos as an incredible mirror for me and you, because if either of you sort of like even has a deviation of in terms of the connection we have, then I don't assume something's happened in terms of how you are. I assume something's happened in terms of how I'm behaving. So almost like you're like very clean mirrors for me. Both of you in that sense. Yeah.
And in that way, right? I mean, I practice I practice meditation in relationship to Buddhism, but it could be other things. And I'm reading about the concept of Shambhala, and I don't know if you've come across this concept of the kind of the evolution of I was going to say the evolution of man. Let's not say that. The evolution of people.
Okay.
And how if we all embody what is true for us, and what is true really at the core of our being is goodness, and really allow ourselves to be shining in our best way, for everyone that will be a different way, then we start evolving into Shambhala, which is another type of consciousness, another way of living, another way of being on the earth, another way of relating to each other and to nature. And that's kind of what we're reflecting, right? Is that we feel an attraction because of the energetic, how we're met in the constellation of people. And then that raises us, all of us.
We have a dear friend called Peter Koenig, and Peter Koenig was on the show about a month ago. He's been on the show twice now, and he has created call it, I would almost say, manifested a world where he did a conference about 2 weeks ago where he called it Love and Business. And the reason why I bring his name up is because he brings forward a very beautiful concept called source. And he says, if you as an individual aren't working from your source, then I don't want to really work with you. Like, I don't shun you, but if you're trying to get your source through working with me, I'd prefer you see what is the thing that gets you excited in life. And then we'll see if there's an overlap with our activities where we can support one another. But if you don't have that, and then you come thinking that this might be where you find it, then I'm not as interested in that kind of relationship.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing man.
And Peter
Yeah.
Koenig is also the man behind Andy's reclamation work.
Yeah. In the second book, he did this reclamation work, which I use in both of the books.
But especially this one.
Yeah, the Wounded Healer. You know, it was. We don't need to discuss it, but it's a great tool to take the thing that you're struggling with and make peace with it. And he's the one that really I would say galvanized that into a really beautiful message.
I'm curious. I'm not even sure what my question is going to be, so I'm going to let it unfold. It sounds to me that you've been almost like in your own kind of self-made retreat, connected to nature, and you've been allowing nature to speak to you, and through that, there's a wisdom that's coming up. And I'm also hearing that you've also kind of been guided to pick up certain books. So I'm wondering, where do you feel there might be a gap which makes you feel, oh, I'm going to reach out for a book now to see what else there's out there in the world? Or I'm not sure what the question is, but
Yeah.
where in your development
Yeah.
do you see yourself going?
Yeah. So you did this, and it tickled me a bit because I lived in a place called Tinker's Bubble. That was where I went off grid. It was a community. It's a fossil fuel free community in Somerset, in the south. And it's really quite a special place if anyone's interested in community living, off grid living, and as low impact as you can probably get in this country. It's incredible. And yes, through being there, there was a level of, through being there, through I also lived on a boat, and then I also went on to live in a little eco house on a piece of land after that too. There's been a lot of time for listening, although I didn't consciously do it. I joke to people and I say, when farmers go out to start farming, they think they're going out to work on land, but truthfully, land works on you. And if you think you're in charge, you're just wrong. And so in that sense, I feel like I became almost like a disciple of nature without intentionally doing that. And luckily for me, I heard that call, and I think that's because of my ancestry, in that my grandparents, one of my grandparents is still doing an indigenous recipe and working on land and living on land now. And I think that because it was just one generation removed from land, I don't have the kind of brokenness or the kind of separation feeling that some people have. I just don't have it. And then, so I did off-grid living and just kind of very quiet life for a long time. And then as I had a daughter with my husband, who was my husband. And then I decided something was missing, something wasn't right. And I decided to leave. And at that time, I took some kind of this, and I just went like that. And I was like, I want to be part of the world. I don't want to just be on a hill, living a very quiet life, very, very beautiful life though it was, I didn't feel that that's what my soul was yearning for. And at that time, I kept getting asked to provide the food for Buddhist retreats. I just kept getting invited. I wasn't Buddhist, and I wasn't really that interested in spirituality at the time, or at least I didn't think I was, because I was obviously living on the land. And so at that point, I started vicariously, because I was working at retreats, hearing teachings and talking with retreatants, and felt it was almost like my cup inside me was just started to fill up. And I realized that I started to realize the richness that can come from the outside, like other teachings and other people, and that nature's not the only teacher. Which is why I really, really value 42 Acres, actually, is because, sorry, it's starting to rain. I hope
it's beautiful.
Okay. It's that
Actually, can you ask it to stop?
Yes. Raise your hand into the nature gods. You apparently are closer to them than we are.
Continue, please.
Yeah, just realizing that wisdom can come through many, many channels.
Yeah.
And that I don't want to be close to any of them.
Yeah. You want them to speak to you, and then let yourself be informed by what you hear them teaching you, as opposed to believing. I always joke on the show, if someone starts a sentence, I believe, then I always say no before they finish the sentence, because it's just things are as they are. And then there's an experience that I continually evolves. When you spoke, I wanted to say one thing that really touched me, is that I lived in Japan for some years. And in Japan, they have the two religions that I studied when I was there. And one was the Buddhism, right? And the other was the Shintoism. And the Shintoism was really fascinating for me. And I never quite understood it, but it's that spirit embodies everything. So everything in nature is embodying spirit. And there's this sort of weird thing I only discovered in you speaking right now, was that I began to sense, oh, wow. So in that religious understanding, there is more of a connection to the kind of oneness of everything, which I never really saw until you spoke of it this way. Yeah. It's really beautiful.
It's funny how we always get insights on the show when we talk to people.
Yeah.
To explain something that happened in the past.
Yeah. As you're talking, I'm like thinking, wow, all those years I never understood what they were really getting at, but now it makes sense. Yeah.
Are you homeschooling your daughter, or is she going to school in the city or in the village? Or
so yeah, I went and picked her up in the village just now, actually. It's a great question. I in a way I would love to be homeschooling her. And when I left off-grid living, I decided I took there's compromises to that, and part of that compromise is living in a world that needs more money than off-grid living. And this is the first time I've lived in a house for 13 years, and it was a bit of a process.
How is that, not to live in a house for 13 years? Like, do you have a sense of, wow, this is convenient, or do you have a sense of like, God, this is wasteful? Like, what's the feeling after 13 years?
God. If I'm really honest with you, I sometimes just have oh my God, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here. This isn't real. That's what comes, is this is not real.
It's a fabricated reality?
Yeah.
Wow. So the closer you are to the land, the more you feel, I would say it in that way, you're closer to nature.
Yeah. But
wow.
And it's more real.
And then it's closer to your nature, of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ronnie and I have this discussion all the time when it comes to architecture. So I look at earth ships and I get very excited. I was going to use colorful language, but I'm not going to for reasons that other people might listen to at some point. But I get so excited by earth houses because in that architecture, I feel myself so grounded, even looking at it, looking at the materials. Of course, I've also heard that when the tires get heated, you smell rubber in the air. So there's sides to it. What?
That's detritus from the industrial world, though.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, you don't want to romanticize things because then you get lost in another belief system. But the thing that I was sort of getting at was, as you spoke just now, I realized I'm always attracted to earthier type dwellings. And Ronnie is like, just give me the basics and let it be clean. We finally agreed on one thing. Andy, if it's clean, you can have whatever you want. That's basically what she's told me.
I love her.
Cool. Compromise. Yeah.
Yeah. But my idea and her idea of clean are a little bit different, because she would also say, if the floor I might be okay with more of a rough floor, even dirt on part of the floor.
Yeah.
And that would be unacceptable for her, for sure. Yeah.
For me too.
Yeah.
When your daughter goes to school in the village and she's connecting with the outside world, and she's probably connecting to the outside world more than you, do I assume that?
I would say that she mixes with a wider range of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously everyone who she's surrounded with has an impact on her.
Yeah.
Her teachers, everyone comes with a belief system. So
they're wearing Nike shoes. They've got backpacks with the things that are like popular.
Ham sandwiches on white bread.
Yeah.
Potato crisps. Like, to what degree is what's her name?
Lillian.
To what degree does Lillian, do you allow her to fit into that world, or does she also? I mean, she seems pretty wise for her age. Does she also have her own, like, Mom, I don't want to eat that stuff? Like, how's that play out?
So I'll tell you two different things which tell you what she's like. The other day, we were all tired. I can't remember what, it had been a crazy week, and we were all tired. And I or my partner said to each other, like, should we get takeaway? And she went, I don't want to eat junk food. I want healthy. She's like, guys, no. She's like, I want to eat really healthy food. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, I better cook then. It's very strong in her.
Mm-hmm. I wonder why.
Yeah. I saw a funny video today of a child the mother kept putting a different chocolate and candies in front of the child, and the child would shove the chocolates away and scream, and then the mom put broccoli down, and then this child started eating it like it was the last thing on earth. It was like the opposite of an experience that
it's amazing, to be honest with you. Like, it's amazing if you raise a child in a community. Lily was born in the community, and all that was around was like fresh peas to eat, chewing on, chewing
raw
on
cacao,
broccoli leaves.
Yeah.
Like, each literally would take a whole beetroot and just eat it. It's and the social interactions. I remember her being babysat when she was 3 months old so that I could have a rest. So I'm one of the guys there would regularly kind of like sling him on his shoulder and go and peg his washing out. It's incredible. And I'm really want to help manifest the future of community living, because it's so rich and it's so hard as well. It's so hard.
One of our most watched episodes was community living. That was one of our most watched episodes ever. Yeah.
I'm really curious. When you say it's so hard, do you have an image that comes to your head of a scenario, of a setup?
Of what the hard part?
Well, I'm thinking community, people coming together, trying to live together, trying to find each other, arguments, disagreements. How do we solve this?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of my biggest failings was thinking that everyone was there for the same reason.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Can you dig into that a little bit? Like, what kind of intentions did you encounter that weren't resonating for you?
Well, something that I find really interesting about being part of the, whatever you want to call it, alternative world or ecological world, is you can be going towards or you can be going away from. And the energy of that is so different. So you can be running away from the modern world because you can't cope. You can be running away from the way your parents did things.
And then
You
you're
can
bringing
be
that stuff
rejecting.
into the community.
Yeah, and then it's an energy. It's an energy.
Yeah, we've said it. We have a whole show on it. Are you saying yes to the thing, or are you saying no to something else? And there's no vision behind a no to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It's like relationships.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily one or the other, right? So you might be
No.
rejecting one thing and pulling towards something else. It's not a clear thing. But you know, or hiding, or
We've heard, I was talking about Bali and hearing about a lot of people traveling to Bali. And what I learned in my short discussions with Bambos and others is Bali is a waiting ground for people who haven't figured out how to function in the rest of society.
Actually, I say Bali is, especially parts of Bali, is full of Westerners dressed in spiritual clothing, like the hipsters of spirituality. And I've met some pretty grounded people, but the majority, it feels like it's a nomadic digital lifestyle, and they're trying to sell it.
And the reason why I bring it forward, which I thought was fascinating, is that I didn't have the feeling, as I heard people share it back to me, that they were going to something. Like you said, I had a feeling like they were going away from something, like they didn't quite make it in their own place, and they were trying to figure out a way to like stall life a little bit. That was what came up for me. As you
Let's put it this way. I didn't meet people in Bali that had your energy, like this grounded, like there's a kind of non-materialistic way of being, a humility about you. And over there, it was about where are you going to do yoga and where are we going to eat? And there's this constant doing. And especially Ubud, of course, has become a safe haven of activities for the Westerners.
I'd like to shift away from Bali, and I'd like to go to Bolalang, who's in South Africa, and he's written a few things that I'd like to share. First,
he didn't think you were 20.
The skills of foraging have dwindled in our generation. My mother used to do it.
New facts about Bolalang, right?
Yeah, Bolalang is always sharing weird, interesting things with us. He also says that he didn't think you were in your 20s. Bolalang,
he says, I thought you were in your 20s.
Oh, I thought you were in the 20s. Sorry.
Not in my 20s.
Yeah, Bolalang, she's got a boyfriend, so lay off, okay? Just keep cool. Bolalang's also married again, so
for the second time,
we discovered that on an earlier show as well.
He has a fear of picking up mushrooms.
That's a great question. So how do you discern edible or non-edible foods, specifically mushrooms and generally?
Without having it becoming an into the wild ending.
Okay, so you want to know about mushrooms specifically, because there's different. I have different.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
Like, how many times have you picked something and got sick eating it?
Never.
Wow.
That's impressive.
That's impressive.
Well, Lily's dad did have a cardiac arrest from eating a poisonous plant.
Yeah, but you divorced him, so that's not a problem.
He had it when we were together.
Oh no, really? That's really quite astounding, though. He had a cardiac arrest. How does that happen?
He had 2 or 3.
Okay.
In a row. He didn't show up for a date, and it was because he was being flown by an air ambulance to the hospital.
Wow.
And I left very angry voice messages on his voicemail. Sorry about that. Yeah. So Lily almost didn't exist really. He was really close. Yeah.
Oh, this
So
is before. This is
yeah,
before Lily. Okay.
yeah. So I take it really, really, really seriously,
Yeah.
extremely seriously.
Mm.
What I'm about to do actually, and what everyone should do that's interested in foraging with plants is to learn all of the plants that will take your life.
Mm.
It's one of the things that I most dislike about mainstream foragers is that you open a foraging book and it's full of food that you can eat. And a little bit like what Bambos said was they're selling it, right? They're selling foraging. And what I would really love to see is people really starting to talk about the poisonous and the risk aspect and the sustainability aspect.
Yeah.
Because these two are the most important aspects before you begin to forage the things you can eat. Now that's with plants. With mushrooms, I kind of do almost like a reverse. So with mushrooms, if there are mushrooms, so if I see a mushroom, what I do is I figure out if in that family there are poisonous mushrooms that will take my life. So I will only forage mushrooms that have a highly safe, are part of a highly safe bracket of mushrooms or group of family of mushrooms. And I learn everything I can learn about that mushroom. And I only pick I get to know a piece of land extremely well. And I will only pick the ones that I'm absolutely certain of. So it's a much narrower viewpoint.
Yeah.
How many?
Can I?
Oh yeah, please go.
You said in the beginning that you would put, like when you were a child, you would just put things in your mouth and let them sit there and kind of taste.
Yeah.
So, how long did you do that for? And with what kind of things before you actually started to educate yourself? Because in that time, you that was risky, by the way, right?
I still do that.
So you're really trusting your senses.
I've always had, and this is where almost like spirituality or meets teaching, right? I'm telling you how I would teach it. But what I absolutely know to be true is if you hang out in nature, nature will speak to you and you will start to know whether something is edible by looking at it, by feeling it, by asking the question. I'm not telling you that you should then ask the question and go and eat a whole leaf of something. Absolutely not. And please, no one do that. But I'm telling you that that is what's happened to me.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I always had a propensity to that. And that is part of my reality of daily living. And I think it's actually part of the reality of many people. We're just not listening or acting on that.
I need to leave my thoughts as you speak to really feel what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then it's like,
Isn't it relaxing to know
yeah,
that nature is abundant?
because if I go into my mind, I start to have. Haven't you seen that movie where the guy eats berries, or like there's a lot of fear
Yeah.
and control, and then if I breathe in what you said, there's like the gut feeling, the intuition.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fear, I think, and this is actually similar to the theme that Andy and I've spoken about off air, which is the fear is part of the dance. If you weren't afraid, you're not alive.
It's necessary.
It's important. It's a really important part of the dance.
Yeah.
And I know that a few times, I've just literally, I've seen some berries and I've grabbed them and I've put them in my mouth and I've eaten them and gone, shit. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't have done that because my mind,
Oh, bugger.
my Western mind kicks in
Yeah.
But then I went away and I checked the identification, and it was a wild blueberry.
Yeah.
Now, I want to see your bookshelf now. I'm thinking that you have like these old antique medicine books
Yeah.
sitting.
That looks like she's a witch, you know.
I have an awesome collection of books.
I
Yeah.
thought so.
When I was living in the Czech Republic, we would do the foraging, and there were also berry trees. And I remember picking from one berry tree because there were so many berries, and I was eating them, but I kept eating so many of them that I wasn't conscious of the amount. It's not only you can eat it, but you can also eat it in moderation. So I ended up throwing up that entire night because my body couldn't absorb the amount of the berries that I'd eaten.
Like a bear.
Yeah. So that was a lesson learned.
But also, Andy,
Yeah.
that's part of purging. Is part of
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
part
true.
of it. It's actually really, it's got really. There's a case for purging.
Yeah.
True. I purge a lot actually. When I'm with very emotional surroundings, I'm taking so much in that I'll often throw up. That's how my body sort
Wow.
of processes deep, and not even my own emotions. If I'm in a very emotional group, meaning so absorbing the emotions and taking them in my body, I did it with Bambos when we did a course together. Yeah.
Yeah. He absorbed all my emotions.
That was a hard one. We have a dear friend at the moment that's going through cancer. Chris Gorell. He's been on our show, I think, 3 times now. And he went to a special place in Colorado where every day they're transferring his blood, and they're doing a blood transfusion with, I think it's mistletoe, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow. Yeah.
And mistletoe is, like you said earlier, is a poisonous
The scene of the poisonous plant. Yeah.
Yeah, but in as we said, in this practice that he's now doing, it basically is considered healing when used properly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you heard of
Yeah.
this, by the way, or is this something?
No, I haven't heard of it being used for the treatment of cancer,
Ah,
but I have heard that you can use it in small amounts.
Hmm.
And I got quite intrigued by it. But I haven't actually tried it yet myself. I would like to. There's a big ball of mistletoe on my way to work, and I've been looking at it thinking, if I stop my car and climb on the roof of my car, then I might be able to reach it. But then if somebody comes along the road, my car's just like parked. But it's like it's in the ether of another project, another day. In winter time, I think, is the best time to harvest it.
How do you experience sickness in your life?
I'm very well. I use all sorts of things that I make when I'm sick, and I also help to gather things for friends who are sick. I actually believe, and I'm sorry, this goes against me having a job and stuff, but I actually believe that the things that are truly valuable should be free. I believe everyone has a right to nutritious food, and I believe everyone should have a right to medicine. And so when I can, I will gather medicinal plants and herbs and make remedies in my free time to give away. And I use berries, I use leaves. You asked me how I experience sickness. Truthfully, I believe that if you work well with food and nature, that really you're looking at a way of being that is treating sickness before it happens. And listen, but again, that comes from listening, which
Mm.
takes time and practice. And
Mm.
we're very much part of a society right now that wants us to be doing all the time.
Yeah.
And has a narrative around being lazy if you're not doing. And, you know, being still with your own, with your own presence, and feeling what's going on with your body is, for me, a really, really important part of health.
Yeah.
And I do, obviously I do sometimes get sick, but I also, and I kind of treat that with home remedies. And if I need to, I'm in a really beautiful place now where it's like, it's Western medicine and it's herbal medicine. It's prevention. And if I need it, it's cure. I seek a cure. I don't need to be dogmatic about the way I live anymore. I lived fossil fuel free for years and off grid for years. And I'm kind of now dancing with both worlds. And that's what that kind of way of being is really healthy for me personally. And respect to everyone who chooses to live off grid. There's no, and the other way as well.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's just shame them for a moment.
Yeah. When in my life I stop eating, like I'm not eating any sugar, I cut out carbohydrates. So
Yes.
just eliminating foods which I felt were not serving me. As soon as I would eat something, my body just gets sick. Like I'll have a day of fever, and then the next day I'm good. And it's like, oh, this doesn't serve me anymore. Like, good. And even food, which I like, I'm a big pizza lover. There's a place in Amsterdam which, oh my God, am I allowed to say orgasm of a pizza? It's an orgasm of a pizza. And I can't eat it. The dough is so heavy on my body. My body just like I'm in bed and I start getting phlegm. And it's like, okay, this is not on anymore. So I'm wondering, when you were in the extreme clean nature, when you decide to come back into this part of the world, how did that impact your body?
Another really good question. It was a really hard transition because I was transitioning into being a single parent. And I was a single parent without a lot of money and needing to work and without a lot of time. And I was waiting for Lily to tell you that the one time I've taken her to McDonald's was straight after my interview for my job.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Did you feel bad?
Did you feel bad?
I didn't want to go. We were trapped. We were driving home and there was nowhere to eat and there was the McDonald's and I was just like, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do this one time. And I felt awful.
I saw your face when I asked her. Your face turned like ashen. I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have asked that question.
It was one time.
I saw that too.
I confess. I was just like, and I was actually sat there imagining, and I'm just going to put it out there energetically, about a place that could be foraged fast food.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was imagining nettle burgers or like, how you could have something like that, but that's financially accessible, made on scale to make it. And I was like, imagine a world where that could happen. That could happen.
Well, we're waiting for you.
Yeah.
But did you actually encounter, like, physically, like your body was not okay being in this part of the world, or were you like,
my body's not really been okay, if I'm honest. I transitioned out of that world 3 years ago, and in that process I gained 3 stone.
3
because
stone?
I was 3 stone. Yeah, I gained a lot of weight.
Oh, stone as in not kilogram, stone.
Stone, sorry, I'm old
I need to
school.
figure that one out. Okay,
I have
continue.
no idea, but it's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. And I've had more health problems in the last 3 years than I have had in the entire 13 years before that.
Wow.
My body, I know that I have been transitioning. It's been a 3-year transition, and I moved home about 5 times in 3 years.
Wow.
It's been tough. I've lived in 2 bed sits. Yeah, I was like, wow, this is what people have to deal with. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did wonder about running back to the community. I did really
You
think
must
about
have.
it, and I just thought, you know what, I was meditating a lot, and I saw a place, and it wasn't my land, it wasn't the community, and I just had to keep trusting.
Yeah.
I just had to keep trusting, and eventually now I'm in a place that's much more supportive, where I can grow vegetables, and I'm rooting on another bit of land.
Do you
But
realize?
yeah,
Do
it
you
has been
realize how?
hard.
Do you realize how crazy it is that you are employed to forage? Like, who in their right mind would ever say, if you go for a next job interview where you would say, well, I was a professional forager?
I won't seek to be employed afterwards if
Okay.
I'm not where I am.
Yeah. But you realize how special it is that at 42 acres, they've designated a role of someone to basically check out all the land. What can you eat? What can you not eat? How do we grow mushrooms? Like that's quite a spectacular role for somebody.
I secretly tell everyone I have the best job in the world, but not to tell anyone else.
Did you hear that, everybody?
I so my official job title is production manager.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that I'm called that name because it's so uncomfortable in a way to call me what I really am.
Yeah.
In a way, right? Like, so I had to be given a title that sounded like a job.
Yeah. You should be the CFO, the Chief Foraging Officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do know I've met this part of the world. Froome seems to attract some pretty you could call it out there or progressive or traditional in a way, because foraging is more traditional. People. So I've actually met about 2 other foragers here, full-time foragers, and
Wow.
like people come. There's an amazing market here. So before I had my job, before I moved here, I used to take food that I'd made, ingredients that I'd collected, and come and sell at the market. And I would sell out, and then I think I had to go back and get more stuff. So there's something happening here that is telling of what's in the ether or in the zeitgeist. Or
Do you, is this like you, like a private, like, I'm not going to reveal my spots so the other foragers don't take your stash?
It's definitely been an issue for me when people have asked me to give interviews. One of the things that I used to forage, the product that I made that ended up going to quite a scale, was called sea buckthorn. It was the sea buckthorn juice. I don't know if have I fed it to you yet?
No, not that I know of.
Okay, next time.
But I mean, is this seaweed?
No, it's a
No,
wild
okay.
berry called sea buckthorn that grows on the coast. And the thing that we did was we developed a way of picking it that was much faster than machines can do. And it meant that we weren't harming the bush. So we were picking it and not cutting the bush. So the bushes would have fruit every year.
Yeah.
And I was asked 1,000 times where I went. And because I was sustaining Lily on the money I was making from selling juice. I couldn't, at the time, I just felt like I couldn't risk jeopardizing that. If somebody else came and picked it just before me, I would be screwed.
Yeah.
So I used to say, well, on the coast.
Just general, somewhere along the coast. There reminds me of, there's this place where they found the highest redwoods in the world. And these people discovered them on a climb, and they refused to share where they are. So there are these high redwoods that exist on the planet, but since they know that if they ever share that location, everyone's going to go there and then they're going to become, whatever they become. So it's quite fascinating that these things exist and yet we don't even know where they are. They know because they measured and took, whatever they did. But yeah, there's something we've discussed because we've been working on the 42 acres vision together. Some of the greatest visionaries are letting nature do its thing. So we don't need to repair nature. Nature can take care of itself. Just get out of the way. I mean, that's sort of a real message that I've taken away from our time together.
Yeah.
One thing that I also wanted to share about things or ask you about, because I get allergies and then I basically boil nettles every year and then I drink nettles for, I don't know, for a few weeks during allergy season.
You mean hay fever?
Hay fever.
You haven't had it this year.
This year not, because I've been taking better care of myself, I think.
And I gave you bee pollen.
And you did give me bee pollen, yes. So my question to you is, what are things specifically that you like that? I don't even know if you do that yourself because you didn't seem to react.
Can I interrupt something?
Please.
Intuitively, when I look at Andy this year, he's been walking every day. There's no way he can get hay fever with that amount of walking. I think you walk like 4 hours a day.
Yeah, 3 to 4
fresh
hours.
air, regardless of weather condition. Like those legs are moving. That booty's moving. The belly's going down. He's breathing. He feels good, and he's not defined by his calendar anymore.
No.
Or his inbox. Like those took second place.
Yep.
So you don't. She doesn't have to answer that question because you're intuitively following your nature.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Someone wants to meet, I'm like, great. Either we do it on the phone or we'll wait until it's possible. But I'm not rearranging my walking so that you get your time with me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And when I look at you, Tasha, I had to read your name. I forgot it. Sorry.
It's okay.
You're outside in nature the whole time. Your hands are getting. I'm not sure if you still do that, like getting dirty and gritty, and you're breathing.
Yeah.
And you're with the elements, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, she took me foraging when I was at the 42 acres. So I had my foraging experience with you, which I love because we went out, we picked the vegetables, and those are the same vegetables we ate in the salad that lunch.
Must have been the best salad you've ever had.
It was fantastic. One thing I did notice is that I'm kind of like, I'll eat a lot. So when I looked at that salad for like 6 people, I'm kind of like, okay, what is everyone else going to eat? Like that's the only thing I noticed about foraging is that the consumption is really moderated in a way. You're not picking like you would for massive amounts. You like pick enough almost to sustain yourself.
Yeah, and there's a nutrient density aspect to foraging where, if you take a leaf that is grown outside, that a wild leaf, a salad leaf that's had to fight to be there, it's built up all the phytonutrients, it's had to fend off other plants and insects that want to come and attack it. So it builds up this type of resilience that when you eat it, it gets transferred into your body. And it's wildly different from a lettuce leaf that's been carefully nurtured in a nursery and bred over many generations in order to be kind of sweet and delicate. And it enters you in a completely different way, and gives you a different kind of sustenance.
Is it true? Or is it true? We have organic markets here in the Netherlands, like a lot of them, especially in Amsterdam. There's quite a lot of with health and so forth.
Yes.
How my body I don't eat fruit, by the way, because I find them way too sweet. And
I think you're on a similar path to me with diet, actually. Sounds right.
So when I hear you speak, it's almost like, even though they say it's organic, it feels way too sweet. And when I'm coaching some guys and training them, and we're talking about food, the guy eats one mango a day, and then he's wondering why he has a belly. And I'm like, sorry, man, that the mango has to go out of your diet. He's like, that's the only thing that brings me joy. And I'm like, sugar is addictive. Of course, it brings you joy.
No.
So how did that come about? Do you know that fruit became
That
so sweet?
I think wild fruit is a naturally occurring food source, but I think in this society, like fruit and sugary things are available in a way that they never were, even 100 years ago. Because concentrated sugars are not, they're not meant to be, we're not meant to eat them in the quantity that we do. And people think that because a smoothie is made with fruit that it's healthy.
Yeah.
And it's a myth. It's not. And what I found, and I completely agree with you, what I found is that actually removing sugary fruits, because we don't realize, we think, oh, if I don't eat chocolate, then I'm not addicted to sugar. Yeah. If I don't eat sweets and I don't eat all that stuff, I'm not addicted to sugar. And at the same time, we're eating loads of bananas or drinking smoothies, mangoes. Yeah, you're right, pineapples. And actually, we're still messing with our blood sugar.
Yeah.
And we're getting that addiction, and we're just getting it in a kind of
Different way.
It is a natural way. It is a natural way. And I think a little bit of sugar is, we work hard, and a little bit of sugar in the form of fruit is not a bad thing, like an apple or a pear, right? But we're not supposed to drink them in liquidized form or in juiced form, because our bodies just turn them into, sort of energy spikes, even when they're fruit. And we don't really think about that. And then we also think, and you talked about joy, the joy of eating mango. Like, I agree, it can, of course, mango is delicious. But what I would say is that, and I think Andy touched on it as well, about essentially like sculpting your palate, and how if you just lower these things, it's not about never having something sweet. It's just about knowing that if I eat a piece of cake this afternoon, that this evening I might think about having pudding, because my body's craving that spike. So it's about doing it in a really conscious way, and kind of going, well, actually in 4 hours, when I crave another sweet or I crave a piece of chocolate, I'm not going to eat it, because I'm not actually supporting my body in that way. It changes. Your flavor changes. It changes, and you begin to fall in love with different flavors. And actually, I would say that forage food can really almost like shine at that time, because you won't love bitter until you start to reprogram your palate to really know what bitter does in your body and how it cleanses you. And it's the same with nettle. Like, I drink a cup of nettle tea and I just go, that's so good for me, because I can taste the minerals. But that's only because I've done the quietening work. And the quietening work is taking away the crap, so that you can actually really taste the food. Because if that crappy food is clouding your palate, you can't really taste the subtlety or the different, like, the effects that the wild food is having on your body. You can't really feel it.
So how much raw cacao do you eat?
I have a big jar.
Yeah, you guys are more similar than you'll ever know.
Like, I have a lot of cacao at home, but I saw also in the beginning, when I stopped eating all the sugars, I would, every time I crave for sweet, I'd eat the cacao. But at some point, I saw that it would give me such a heavy feeling in the front lobe that right now I've gone down to like a piece, one piece a day, and before 2 o'clock, or else it's going to keep me up at night.
And for those that haven't tasted raw cacao, imagine yourself picking a piece of dirt off the ground and putting it in your mouth.
Shut up.
And chewing.
It's really bitter, and if you chew it good, actually, you do get some sweetness. I would even compare it to vanilla, but it's very subtle.
A really good quality cacao.
And that comes with chewing your food, people. Chewing your food. Don't gulp it.
One of my favorite experiences was when I went to Costa Rica, and I spent a day, and they actually took us through the entire process of making cacao. So, and getting to see it being made firsthand and picking the actual.
You didn't bring me any.
Amazing.
It was really nice. I really enjoyed it as a learning experience.
No, I didn't. Okay, we're going to talk about this.
We've gone 15 minutes over, which is quite exceptionally long time for us on a show. So, and I still see. there were a lot of questions I didn't ask.
Same here.
And
I had such a nice time. Thank you for having me.
Bolalong says a few comments. He loves earth ships. He loves the taste, the dark chocolate. And he says if you eat the natal plum more than 1 or 3 of them, then you will get diarrhea.
Thank
So
you, Bulelang.
for
I'll
those
be
people
sure.
in South Africa, please do not eat more than 3 natal plums.
Unless you've got constipation.
Maybe then you have it. Thank you, Tasha, for being with us. It was really great to spend this time with you.
Yeah, you too, both of you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank
Send
you.
you a hug.
Send you a
Yeah,
kiss.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
So how is it to meet your alter ego in the England? Your alter eating. It sounds like you could spend some time there and learn how to eat in a way that you might even start picking things in Amsterdamse Bos.
Do you know what the paradox is?
What's that?
I think I've shared this with you. When friends during these times, during the COVID times, ask me to meet, let's go for a walk in the park or let's go to the forest. I'm like, guys, there's no effing way I'm going to the park and forest. I want to be around people. So if I have free time, I want to walk through the city. I want to see life.
You're alone in your house during this COVID period.
King's Day was a bit too much. It was
Yeah.
overwhelming so I couldn't be with it.
Yeah.
But it was beautiful to witness, have that. Wow, that's how life looked like.
Yeah. Fascinating.
But I have to say that the only nature I'll be doing when I go to my country is climbing with my brother.
Yeah.
And waterfalls.
Oh, nice. I must say that when I speak to Tasha, what happens to me is it feels kind of like a meditation. Through her, I sense how she's engaging her environment and the land around her. And there's a degree of when she spoke about energy, I see that's the energy that drives me closer to feeling at peace and wanting to be closer to the land. And that's just something that I see as a continual, like a desire, a deep desire inside of myself.
Yeah. And being with her for me was just witnessing someone that embodies wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah. Nature's wisdom.
Like the intelligence.
Yeah.
What we talk, and we not the intellect, but the intelligence connected.
Yeah. And she liked me, so she has to be pretty intelligent, no? That's what I always say to Ronnie.
Hey guys, I wish you a beautiful evening.
Thank you.
And we're gonna do this and again and again and again
in this petty pace from day to day,
and so much
to the
more.
last syllable of recorded time.
1 second.
On
1 second.
I
want this guy to
wonderful chaos. And Vambos, you only get 1 second to show that guy that you filmed today. You get to show him. And this is Bambos getting people to say wonderful chaos. Thank you. Bye.